never forget who you are.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Ninja Assassin, released in 2009, stands as one of the most prominent action martial arts films of its era, bringing together Western cinematic production values with deeply rooted Eastern fighting traditions and ninja mythology. This American-German co-production was directed by James McTeague, who had previously garnered acclaim for his work on V for Vendetta, a film noted for its visual stylization and narrative intensity. The film was produced under the supervision of Joel Silver, a legendary action film producer with decades of experience in blockbuster cinema, alongside Grant Hill and the Wachowskis, who were instrumental in shaping the martial arts action sequences. With a screenplay written by Matthew Sand and J. Michael Straczynski, Ninja Assassin was envisioned as a high-octane narrative that fused modern forensic crime investigation with ancient ninja traditions. The film's production involved a collaboration between Warner Bros. Pictures, Legendary Pictures, and Dark Castle Entertainment, all of which contributed to its international scope and distribution capabilities. Its primary language is English, but the narrative's martial arts culture, dialogue, and fight choreography carry heavy Japanese and Korean influences, lending authenticity to the story of a secret ninja clan operating in the modern world. The narrative of Ninja Assassin revolves around the character of Raizo, portrayed by the internationally acclaimed Korean pop star and actor Rain, who gained prominence not only for his musical career but also for his exceptional physicality and martial arts prowess. Raizo's character is a master assassin, whose skills are unparalleled due to the grueling training he endured as a child in the Ozunu Clan, a covert organization of elite ninja warriors. The clan itself operates as a shadow entity, supplying governments, powerful corporations, and influential figures with assassins capable of eliminating targets without leaving evidence. From a young age, Raizo was abducted from the streets and raised within the rigid, often brutal hierarchy of the clan. The Ozunu Clan's training methods were extreme, involving not only rigorous physical conditioning but also psychological manipulation designed to instill loyalty, fearlessness, and a detachment from normal human empathy. Raizo's early life is marked by both friendship and trauma, as he forms a bond with a fellow trainee named Kiriko, who represents both compassion and a desire for freedom that contrasts sharply with the clan's lethal ideology. As the story progresses, the narrative delves into the intense emotional and moral conflicts faced by Raizo. The turning point occurs with the tragic death of Kiriko, who attempts to escape the Ozunu Clan's compound only to be captured and publicly executed. This act becomes the catalyst for Raizo's eventual rebellion, planting the seeds of defiance against the very organization that raised him. Raizo's journey from obedient trainee to rogue assassin is depicted with a combination of stylized violence and deeply personal stakes, reflecting the duality of his character as both a product of intense indoctrination and a human being capable of emotional attachment and moral choice. The film portrays his escape from the clan as both physically and emotionally harrowing, emphasizing the threat posed by the organization that seeks to eliminate him for defying its rules. The choreography during these sequences highlights Rain's martial arts abilities, combining acrobatics, gymnastics, and weapons training to deliver visually stunning combat scenes that balance speed, precision, and brutal intensity. Parallel to Raizo's narrative is the storyline of Mika Coretti, a forensic Europol agent played by Naomie Harris, whose investigative work unwittingly intersects with the activities of the Ozunu Clan. Mika's character represents the analytical, procedural, and law-abiding world of modern criminal investigation, which contrasts sharply with the shadowy, violent, and highly ritualized existence of the ninja assassins. As Mika uncovers a series of seemingly inexplicable murders, she begins to connect the dots between the victims, the financial transactions behind the killings, and the shadow organization responsible. Her investigation puts her in grave danger as the Ozunu Clan identifies her as a threat, sending elite assassins to eliminate her. The convergence of Raizo and Mika's paths is central to the narrative, as their alliance bridges the gap between traditional, clandestine martial arts operations and the modern methods of law enforcement and forensic investigation. The dynamic between Raizo and Mika is developed with both tension and collaboration, highlighting how two characters from radically different worlds can come together with shared goals of justice, survival, and retribution. The film's action sequences are a central focus, with the choreography drawing on both traditional Japanese martial arts techniques and contemporary cinematic innovations. Each fight scene is meticulously staged to showcase not only physical skill but also the psychological stakes involved. For example, Raizo's battles against multiple ninja opponents are choreographed to emphasize his strategic thinking, adaptability, and lethal precision. The production team employed a combination of practical stunts, wirework, and visual effects to enhance the fluidity and intensity of combat, while ensuring that Rain's own martial arts capabilities were fully utilized on screen. The climactic sequences, particularly the assault on the Ozunu Clan's mountain temple, integrate large-scale set pieces with tight, close-quarters combat, reflecting both the scale and the intimate danger of Raizo's confrontation with his former mentors. The final showdown with Lord Ozunu, portrayed by Sho Kosugi, is a culmination of Raizo's personal journey, combining narrative closure with a display of extraordinary physicality and choreographed spectacle. From a casting perspective, Ninja Assassin brought together a blend of international talent to enhance the film's authenticity and appeal. Rain's performance as Raizo was complemented by Naomie Harris's portrayal of Mika Karetti, providing both emotional depth and investigative rigor to the narrative. Sho Kosugi, a legendary figure in martial arts cinema, brought gravitas and credibility to the role of Lord Ozunu, embodying the archetype of the ruthless, disciplined master. Supporting actors, including Ben Miles as Ryan Maslow, Rick Yoon as Takashi, and Anna Sawai as Kiriko, contributed to the film's layered narrative, providing both personal stakes and antagonistic tension. The casting strategy effectively combined Western and Asian talent, reflecting the film's international production values and the narrative's fusion of cultural martial arts traditions with a modern thriller framework. The production of Ninja Assassin was notably international, with principal photography taking place in Berlin and Potsdam, Germany. The filmmakers constructed elaborate sets to represent the Ozunu Clan's hidden temple and compound, integrating both traditional Japanese architectural elements and stylized cinematic design. The film's visual aesthetic was further enhanced by the involvement of the Wachowskis in the action direction, ensuring that the choreography, camera movement, and visual effects achieved a seamless integration of realism and heightened cinematic spectacle. Rain's preparation for the role was extensive, involving months of rigorous training in martial arts, weapon handling, acrobatics, and stunt work. This preparation allowed the filmmakers to capture long, uninterrupted takes of action sequences, emphasizing authenticity and physicality over reliance on CGI replacement or stunt doubles. The stunt team included members from the highly regarded 8711 Stunt Group, known for their work on blockbuster action films, which further elevated the film's dynamic and believable fight scenes. The release strategy for Ninja Assassin reflected its positioning as a major international action film. It premiered in the United States on November 25, 2009, distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures, and was subsequently released in various international markets. The film's R rating was primarily due to its intense violence, blood effects, and action choreography, aligning with the expectations of adult audiences seeking high-intensity martial arts entertainment. Promotional efforts included theatrical trailers, online content, and tie-ins highlighting Rain's martial arts abilities, the film's stylized action, and the overarching narrative of revenge and personal liberation. The official trailer, released prior to the film's premiere, showcased Raizo's acrobatic combat, the dark aesthetic of the Ozunu Clan, and the film's blending of traditional and modern elements, effectively generating anticipation among fans of martial arts cinema and mainstream action audiences alike. Thematically, Ninja Assassin explores issues of identity, loyalty, and moral choice within the context of extreme violence and institutionalized brutality. Raizo's journey is emblematic of the tension between indoctrination and personal agency, as he struggles to reconcile the training and values instilled in him by the Ozunu Clan with his own sense of justice and humanity. Mika's character serves as a moral counterpoint, embodying the rational, law-abiding pursuit of truth, which contrasts with the secretive, morally ambiguous world of ninja assassins. The interplay between these two worlds creates dramatic tension and narrative complexity, elevating the film beyond mere action spectacle to a meditation on the consequences of violence, obedience, and the pursuit of personal freedom. The film's reception was mixed, with critics praising the high-energy action sequences and Rain's physical performance while critiquing certain narrative elements and character development. Despite this, the movie found a significant audience among martial arts enthusiasts and action fans, who appreciated its commitment to intense, stylized combat and its integration of Eastern martial arts traditions within a contemporary cinematic framework. Ninja Assassin has since gained a degree of cult status, particularly for its inventive fight choreography, visual flair, and the crossover appeal of its international cast. Raizo, the central protagonist of Ninja Assassin, is the embodiment of duality, a character torn between his brutal upbringing and emerging personal morality. Abducted as a child by the Ozunu Clan, Raizo's formative years are characterized by systematic dehumanization, rigorous combat training, and psychological conditioning. This upbringing shapes his identity, instilling lethal skill, discipline, and unwavering focus, but simultaneously suppressing emotional expression and personal choice. Raizo's psychological profile is complex. While he exhibits the cold, calculated efficiency of a trained assassin, he also demonstrates empathy, introspection, and moral reasoning. These qualities emerge gradually, initially through subtle gestures, hesitation before executing a mission, private expressions of grief over lost peers, and quiet defiance of the clan's orders. The interplay between his violent skill set and emergent conscience drives the narrative, creating tension and narrative depth beyond the physical action sequences. Raizo's disillusionment with the Ozunu Clan marks a critical psychological turning point. Witnessing the arbitrary and brutal execution of his peers challenges the moral absolutism instilled in him by the clan. His rebellion is not impulsive but a calculated moral choice, reflecting internal ethical reasoning that contrasts with the blind obedience expected by the clan. This evolution demonstrates a layered understanding of autonomy, accountability, and justice. By the time Raizo confronts Takashi, Lord Ozunu, and the clan's other operatives, his actions are motivated not only by survival but by a coherent ethical framework, marking him as a morally complex anti-hero rather than a one-dimensional action protagonist. Mika Coretti, the investigative agent, serves as both a narrative foil and moral counterbalance to Raizo. Psychologically, Mika is characterized by resilience, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Her training as an investigator equips her with analytical skills, patience, and adaptability, which prove essential when navigating the extraordinary threats posed by the Ozunu Clan. Mika's interactions with Raizo are crucial to his psychological development. She humanizes his experience, provides a conduit for dialogue about morality, and challenges him to reconcile his lethal abilities with ethical principles. Psychologically, Mika demonstrates high emotional intelligence. She reads situations, evaluates threats, and adapts strategies dynamically, all while maintaining empathy and moral clarity. Her presence in the narrative underscores themes of collaboration, trust, and the tension between lawfulness and extrajudicial justice. Takashi, the clan enforcer, is Raizo's primary antagonist in terms of physical confrontation, but his psychological profile also provides insight into the Ozunu Clan's institutional mindset. Takashi is fiercely loyal to the clan, exhibiting aggression, obedience, and a relentless pursuit of objectives. His aggression is both a tool and a psychological mechanism. It reinforces his identity within the clan, aligns him with the organization's ideology, and suppresses doubts or ethical concerns. Takashi's interactions with Raizo reveal a layered psychological dynamic. He perceives Raizo's defection as betrayal, eliciting both rage and fear, while Raizo's superior skill challenges Takashi's self-concept as an elite enforcer. The resulting tension elevates their confrontations beyond mere physical combat, framing each fight as a clash of ideology, skill, and personal identity. Lord Ozunu, the clan's patriarch and ideological authority, embodies authoritarianism and institutionalized control. Psychologically, he is a master manipulator, employing fear, indoctrination, and discipline to maintain loyalty and suppress dissent within the clan. His interactions with Raizo highlight themes of power, control, and the moral consequences of indoctrination. Lord Ozunu's rigidity and ideological certainty contrast sharply with Raizo's emergent autonomy, creating narrative tension that culminates in their climactic confrontation. From a thematic perspective, Lord Ozunu represents the dangers of unchallenged authority and the psychological costs of systems that prioritize obedience over individual moral reasoning. Supporting characters, while less central, also contribute to the psychological tapestry of the narrative. Ryan Maslow, portrayed as a government or investigative official, represents the institutional perspective, law, regulation, and bureaucracy. Psychologically, Maslow exhibits caution, skepticism, and reliance on protocol, which often contrasts with Raizo's intuitive and experiential approach. His character reinforces the narrative tension between rigid institutional procedures and flexible, morally informed action. Secondary Ozunu operatives, though less individually developed, collectively embody the psychological effects of indoctrination, demonstrating suppressed emotion, aggression, and unwavering obedience, highlighting the broader human cost of institutionalized violence. Raizo's psychological development is further illustrated through his interactions with the environments and weapons he engages with. Each combat encounter is not merely physical but a reflection of his cognitive processes, anticipation, pattern recognition, decision-making under stress, and ethical consideration in targeting. For example, Raizo often neutralizes opponents strategically, avoiding unnecessary lethality when possible, demonstrating moral reasoning within the context of survival and resistance. This contrasts with Takashi and other clan operatives, whose decisions are dictated by dogmatic loyalty rather than ethical deliberation. Raizo's adaptability, creativity, and moral judgment in combat underscore the intricate interplay between psychological development and narrative action, making him a compelling character study in resilience, autonomy, and ethical complexity. Mika's psychological contribution to the narrative extends beyond direct action. Her role as an observer and analyst allows the audience to access the broader implications of the Ozunu clan's operations. Through her investigation, dialogue, and strategic decisions, Mika serves as a cognitive and moral anchor, guiding Raizo, and by extension, the audience, through complex ethical and operational landscapes. Her resilience under threat, adaptive thinking, and emotional intelligence reinforce thematic explorations of morality, justice, and human connection, complementing Raizo's personal journey and heightening narrative tension. Takashi and Lord Ozunu collectively illustrate the psychological consequences of ideological indoctrination and authoritarian control. Takashi's aggression, fear, and tactical rigidity are byproducts of his socialization within the clan, while Lord Ozunu's unyielding authority exemplifies the structural mechanisms that perpetuate obedience and suppress dissent. Their interactions with Raizo highlight the narrative's exploration of autonomy, ethical choice, and resistance to systemic violence. These psychological dynamics elevate the film's action sequences from mere spectacle to meaningful narrative engagements, demonstrating how character cognition and ideology inform physical behavior and strategic decision-making. Even minor characters, such as fellow clan members or investigative staff, contribute to the film's psychological ecosystem. Their behavior, reactions to threat, and adherence to rules reinforce thematic motifs of loyalty, control, and the human costs of institutionalized violence. Collectively, these characters create a believable ecosystem in which Raizo's decisions, ethical reasoning, and moral growth are highlighted and contrasted, providing the audience with multiple perspectives on obedience, resistance, and the consequences of violence. Raizo's psychological journey is also evident in his strategic decision-making. He consistently evaluates risk, anticipates opponent behavior, and adapts to unpredictable circumstances. This cognitive agility is central to his survival and effectiveness as an assassin, illustrating the integration of psychological insight with physical skill. The contrast between Raizo's strategic flexibility and the Ozunu clan's rigid adherence to protocol further emphasizes thematic explorations of autonomy, intelligence, and ethical decision-making. Each choice Raizo makes, from selecting targets to navigating environments, reflects a complex interplay between instinct, learned skill, and moral reasoning, providing a multidimensional perspective on the protagonist's psychological evolution. The interplay between Raizo and Mika is particularly significant for understanding psychological and narrative complexity. Their interactions involve negotiation, trust-building, and adaptive communication, revealing the cognitive and emotional processes that underpin collaborative survival in high-stakes environments. Mika's analytical perspective complements Reizo's experiential knowledge, creating a synergy that allows them to navigate threats effectively. This dynamic also serves as a narrative device to explore themes of morality, ethical decision-making, and human connection, highlighting the role of relational psychology in action-oriented storytelling. Beyond Raizo and Mika, several secondary characters play crucial roles in enriching the narrative of Ninja Assassin, each contributing to the thematic and emotional depth of the film. Takashi, portrayed by Rick Yoon, serves as Reizo's former peer within the Ozunu clan and embodies the unwavering adherence to the clan's strict code. His loyalty to Lord Ozunu and the clan's principles contrasts sharply with Reizo's journey of self-discovery and moral awakening. Takashi is not merely a villain for the sake of opposition, his motivations are deeply rooted in a sense of duty, honor, and belief in the clan's methods. This ideological conflict elevates their confrontations from physical altercations to symbolic struggles, reflecting differing philosophies on obedience, morality, and the value of individual freedom. The tension between Raizo and Takashi highlights the cost of indoctrination and emphasizes that rebellion carries both risk and moral consequence. Lord Ozunu, the ultimate antagonist played by Sho Kosugi, is depicted as a master manipulator and strategist, whose leadership is characterized by a ruthless efficiency and a cold, calculating intelligence. His philosophy is simple yet unyielding: absolute control, total discipline, and unwavering loyalty. Unlike Takashi, who functions within the clan's hierarchy, Ozunu represents the institutional embodiment of its oppressive doctrine. His presence in the film reinforces the thematic tension between freedom and subjugation, highlighting how power structures can manipulate, exploit, and enforce compliance through fear. The final confrontation between Raizo and Ozunu is not merely a culmination of action sequences but a narrative assertion of individual agency overcoming systemic oppression. The choreography of their duel reflects this ideological clash, with every strike, block, and counterstrike carrying symbolic weight, echoing the characters' philosophies and personal journeys. Kiriko, though her screen time is limited, serves as an essential catalyst for Reizo's transformation. Her curiosity, compassion, and moral sensitivity provide Raizo with a mirror of his own suppressed humanity. Her eventual execution at the hands of the Ozunu clan is both shocking and narratively significant, crystallizing Reizo's recognition of the clan's cruelty and the necessity of his rebellion. This event underscores one of the film's central themes: the moral cost of obedience and the personal consequences of oppressive institutions. The emotional resonance of her death informs Reizo's subsequent decisions, lending depth to his character beyond the martial arts spectacle. The interplay of mentorship, friendship, and loss in Reizo's early life establishes a foundation for the audience to understand his motivations and ethical framework. The film's fight sequences are integral to both narrative and character development. Early combat scenes within the Ozunu compound emphasize discipline, precision, and uniformity, reflecting the character's conditioning and the regimented nature of the clan. These sequences employ tightly choreographed movements, close-quarters combat, and swift, fluid strikes, all executed with a near-military precision. As Raizo transitions into the outside world, the choreography becomes more adaptive and improvisational, reflecting his growing independence and strategic creativity. Environmental interaction becomes a key element, with Raizo utilizing walls, staircases, railings, and improvised weapons to outmaneuver multiple adversaries. The camera work during these sequences is dynamic, alternating between wide establishing shots that showcase the full complexity of the fight and close-up slow-motion sequences that highlight precision strikes and the physicality of the performers. Production anecdotes reveal the lengths to which the filmmakers went to achieve authenticity and spectacle. Rain, known for his athleticism and martial arts background, underwent intensive training to master the film's complex choreography. Stunt coordinators and martial arts experts worked closely with the actors to ensure that each movement adhered to traditional ninja techniques while remaining visually compelling on camera. Practical stunts were combined with CGI enhancements, particularly in sequences involving extreme acrobatics, high-impact strikes, and graphic depictions of injury. The combination of practical and digital effects allowed the film to maintain a visceral realism while amplifying the intensity of the action, contributing to its signature style. Cinematography and visual design further reinforced the thematic and narrative elements of the film. High-contrast lighting, deep shadows, and selective use of color accentuate the tension and drama of combat sequences, while framing and camera angles emphasize the spatial dynamics of the fights. For example, rooftop chases and vertical assaults on the fortress allow the camera to capture the scale, danger, and intricacy of each engagement. Editing techniques, including rapid cuts, slow-motion sequences, and synchronized sound effects, enhance the rhythm and impact of the martial arts, ensuring that action sequences communicate both physical intensity and narrative significance. Thematically, Ninja Assassin explores the tension between freedom and control, the psychological cost of indoctrination, and the moral consequences of violence. Raizo's journey illustrates the struggle of an individual conditioned for obedience to reclaim agency, navigate ethical dilemmas, and make autonomous choices. Mika's role highlights the intersection of intellect and morality, providing a lens through which the audience can engage with the broader implications of the clan's activities. Secondary characters, particularly Takashi and Lord Ozunu, embody ideological extremes, creating a narrative spectrum that allows the film to examine complex moral questions within the framework of a high-octane action thriller. Upon its release, Ninja Assassin garnered a mix of critical responses. Praise centered on the innovative fight choreography, the visual style, and Rain's committed performance as Raizo. Critics highlighted the film's ability to blend traditional martial arts with modern cinematic techniques, noting the effectiveness of CGI-enhanced sequences in heightening action intensity. Conversely, some critiques focused on the perceived simplicity of the narrative and the limited development of certain secondary characters, suggesting that the film prioritized spectacle over story. Despite these critiques, the film found an appreciative audience among fans of martial arts cinema and viewers drawn to its stylistic boldness. Box office performance was moderate, reflecting both the film's niche appeal and its international star cast, but it has since achieved a cult status within the action genre. Marketing strategies emphasize the film's stylistic and physical intensity, positioning Rain as both a martial artist and an international action star. Trailers and promotional materials highlighted key sequences, including rooftop battles, stealth assassinations, and the climactic showdown at the fortress, using rapid cuts, slow-motion effects, and visually striking imagery to attract viewers. The marketing effectively communicated the fusion of traditional ninja mythology with contemporary cinematic aesthetics, appealing to both global and domestic audiences interested in high-energy action. The first major combat sequence after Raizo's escape from the Ozunu Clan illustrates the filmmaker's meticulous attention to martial arts choreography and environmental interaction. Set in a narrow Berlin alley, the sequence begins with Raizo encountering two pursuing assassins. The alleyway is slick from rain, strewn with crates and debris that serve as both obstacles and tactical tools. The choreography integrates these elements seamlessly. Raizo uses the crates for leverage to spring over attackers, employs walls for rebounds, and manipulates the environment to create advantage. Each strike is executed with precision, the camera follows every movement fluidly, often switching between long tracking shots and close-ups that capture the tension and physical intensity. The sound design amplifies each impact, giving weight to even seemingly minor movements. This sequence establishes Raizo not merely as a combatant but as a master of spatial awareness, capable of transforming his environment into an extension of his lethal skill set. Raizo's subsequent encounter with Mika Coretti in her apartment introduces a different kind of tension, blending martial prowess with narrative exposition. Mika, initially unaware of Raizo's presence and the danger surrounding her, is immediately thrust into a life-threatening scenario. The choreography here emphasizes Raizo's protective instincts. He neutralizes threats silently and efficiently, often moving in shadows and using subtle, non-lethal maneuvers to control the scene before employing lethal force. The juxtaposition of Raizo's lethal efficiency with Mika's vulnerability creates a compelling dynamic that drives the story forward. Cinematically, the scene utilizes tight framing to create claustrophobia, and lighting is manipulated to cast shadows that both conceal and reveal movement, reinforcing the stealth elements of Raizo's training. The psychological complexity of Raizo is further explored during his interactions with Mika. Unlike other characters, Mika does not operate purely within a martial or political framework. She is driven by curiosity, empathy, and a desire for justice. Her presence allows Raizo to confront his own moral ambiguity and the consequences of his violent upbringing. Their partnership evolves through shared danger and mutual trust, and the film carefully stages this evolution through repeated sequences where coordinated combat and shared problem-solving demonstrate their growing alliance. For example, in a warehouse sequence, the two navigate multiple attackers using both strategy and physical skill, alternating roles between offensive and defensive actions. The choreography is designed to highlight cooperation and improvisation, underscoring the humanizing influence Mika exerts on Raizo. The confrontations with Takashi are central to the film's thematic and visual identity. Takashi embodies the unyielding, absolute discipline of the Ozunu Clan, representing the path Raizo could have continued down had he not rebelled. Their first major encounter occurs on a series of interconnected rooftops during a storm. Rain, wind, and slick surfaces add an additional layer of difficulty, increasing both physical and cinematic tension. Each strike and counterstrike is choreographed to display both characters' mastery while visually communicating their philosophical differences. Raizo's movements are adaptive, reactive, and expressive, whereas Takashi's are rigid, linear, and detached. The use of slow motion during key strikes emphasizes the lethal elegance of each maneuver while allowing the audience to appreciate the spatial relationships and tactical decision-making involved in high-level martial arts combat. The cinematography alternates between wide establishing shots that capture the environment and tight shots that convey emotional intensity, particularly Raizo's inner struggle during moments of extreme danger. Flashbacks continue to serve as a narrative and emotional device throughout the film. These sequences, often triggered during combat or high-stress situations, provide insight into Raizo's formative years, his bond with Kiriko, and the conditioning imposed by the Ozunu Clan. Cinematically, these flashbacks employ desaturated color schemes, slow pacing, and softer focus to differentiate memory from present-day reality. Thematically, they reinforce the inescapable influence of Raizo's past, showing that even as he seeks autonomy, the imprint of childhood trauma and the moral lessons learned under duress continue to guide his actions. For example, during a rooftop confrontation, the sudden flashback to Kiriko's death informs Raizo's hesitation and strategy, demonstrating how memory and emotion are inseparable from physical action in his world. The climactic assault on the Ozunu compound represents the narrative and visual apex of the film. The filmmakers meticulously designed the compound to serve both as a formidable physical space and as a symbolic representation of the clan's ideological rigidity. Multiple levels, narrow corridors, and interconnected rooms create a labyrinthine battlefield. Raizo and Mika's infiltration combines stealth, combat, and improvisation, with choreography emphasizing spatial awareness, timing, and resourcefulness. Raizo neutralizes guards with silent precision, often using environmental tools, chains, railings, and walls, to gain leverage. The fight sequences are layered, with simultaneous engagements occurring in different areas, edited together to convey scale without sacrificing clarity. Lighting and sound design reinforce the sense of danger, shadows obscure threats, rain amplifies the auditory texture, and the score punctuates moments of heightened tension with dramatic percussion and electronic undertones. The confrontation with Sho Kosugi's character, the clan master, is both physical and ideological. Their fight is choreographed as a series of tests, combining acrobatics, swordplay, and hand-to-hand combat. Each move is deliberate, reflecting both the character's mastery and the stakes of their conflict. Cinematically, the sequence alternates between long takes that showcase fluidity and close-ups that capture intensity and emotion. Raizo's ultimate victory is not solely a demonstration of skill but also a symbolic assertion of autonomy, morality, and human agency over rigid dogma. Production design and cinematography throughout Ninja Assassin are consistently employed to reinforce themes of secrecy, danger, and moral ambiguity. Berlin's urban landscape serves as a contemporary backdrop, while the Ozunu compound represents an insular, archaic world. Lighting schemes exploit chiaroscuro effects, casting shadows that both conceal and highlight action. Costume design reflects character development, with Raizo's attire evolving subtly to signify his moral and psychological transformation. Music and sound design complement visual storytelling, blending traditional and modern elements to create an immersive auditory experience. Psychologically, the film interrogates themes of indoctrination, loyalty, vengeance, and redemption. Raizo's journey from a conditioned assassin to a self-determined individual is complex and fraught with internal conflict. Mika functions as both guide and moral mirror, challenging Raizo to recognize the humanity he has been trained to suppress. Their evolving relationship underscores the film's central message: true redemption and agency arise from ethical choice, empathy, and meaningful human connection. Upon release, the film's reception was mixed. Critics praised Rain's performance, the choreography, and the visual style but criticized narrative simplicity and excessive stylization of violence. Despite these critiques, Ninja Assassin achieved commercial success and cultivated a dedicated international fanbase. Its influence extends into subsequent martial arts and action cinema, inspiring reinterpretations of ninja mythology, hyper-stylized combat, and morally complex protagonists in contemporary urban settings. Over time, the film has been re-evaluated for its contributions to genre cinema. The meticulous choreography, psychological depth, and synthesis of Eastern and Western cinematic techniques have garnered appreciation from martial arts enthusiasts, action aficionados, and scholars studying the globalization of film genres. Its exploration of trauma, morality, and the consequences of violence offers both visceral spectacle and thematic resonance, elevating it beyond conventional action fare. The film's legacy is further reinforced by its cross-cultural casting, international production design, and fusion of stylistic approaches. Rain's embodiment of Raizo demonstrates the potential for martial artists from Asia to cross into Western cinema, while Sho Kosugi's presence maintains a link to classical ninja cinema. Cinematography, editing, sound design, and choreography combine to create a cinematic language that is at once kinetic, expressive, and narratively coherent, appealing to both genre enthusiasts and broader audiences. Ultimately, Ninja Assassin succeeds as a study of duality, past and present, violence and morality, indoctrination and agency, human connection and isolation. Its relentless action sequences, psychological depth, and stylistic ambition position it as a distinctive entry in the global martial arts cinema canon. The film's continuous interplay between spectacle and narrative, precision and improvisation, physical skill and emotional resonance ensures its lasting relevance and appeal. Ninja Assassin, released in 2009, is a high-octane, visually striking martial arts action film that emerged as a collaboration between American and German production teams, blending Hollywood spectacle with Asian martial arts traditions. The film was directed by James McTeague, who had previously garnered recognition for his work on V for Vendetta, and produced by the Wachowskis, Lana and Lily, along with Joel Silver. The Wachowskis' involvement is significant, as they brought their experience in crafting stylistically rich, kinetically charged action sequences, most notably seen in the Matrix trilogy. This film's creation reflects a blend of Western cinematic narrative structures with Eastern martial arts sensibilities, giving it a unique flavor in the action genre. From the outset, the film was designed to showcase stylized combat, fluid motion, and a dark, almost neo-noir aesthetic, contrasting sharply with traditional martial arts films that often rely on straightforward fight sequences. At the center of the story is Raizo, portrayed by South Korean superstar Rain, whose role in Ninja Assassin marked his first major leading appearance in a Hollywood production. Raizo's journey is one steeped in tragedy, betrayal, and vengeance. From his early childhood, Raizo is taken from his family and trained by the Ozunu Clan, an ancient, secretive, and ruthless organization of ninjas. This clan operates in the shadows of the global political stage, carrying out assassinations and influencing events through fear and violence. The clan is led by the imposing Lord Ozunu, whose philosophy emphasizes total loyalty, unflinching obedience, and the eradication of personal identity in favor of clan allegiance. Under Ozunu's cruel tutelage, Raizo and his peers endure extreme physical and psychological trials designed to mold them into lethal weapons. The narrative emphasizes the dehumanizing effects of this training, portraying the transformation of children into assassins as both horrifying and compelling, underscoring the dark moral implications of indoctrination and loss of agency. Raizo's bond with a fellow trainee, Kiriko, serves as a pivotal emotional touchstone in the story. Kiriko represents the possibility of empathy, resistance, and moral questioning within the otherwise merciless environment of the Ozunu Clan. Her tragic fate, execution at the hands of the clan, acts as the catalyst for Raizo's rebellion, igniting the narrative's central conflict. After years of service as one of the clan's deadliest operatives, Raizo chooses to defy the clan, killing one of its senior members and escaping, which triggers an intense pursuit. The film skillfully portrays the tension between Raizo's lethal training and his emerging humanity, highlighting the psychological burden of a man who has been conditioned to kill but who now seeks autonomy and justice. Parallel to Raizo's story is that of Mika Coretti, a diligent Europol forensic researcher who begins uncovering a series of political assassinations linked to the mysterious Ozunu Clan. Her investigation is meticulous, highlighting her intelligence, persistence, and moral courage in the face of danger. When she inadvertently draws the attention of the clan, her life becomes endangered, leading to her rescue by Raizo. The dynamic between Raizo and Mika evolves from one of protector and protected to a partnership based on mutual respect, trust, and shared objectives. Their alliance is central to the narrative's tension, providing a humanizing counterpoint to the relentless action sequences and exploring themes of trust, cooperation, and moral responsibility in a world dominated by violence. The film's action sequences are a hallmark of its identity. Each fight is choreographed to maximize visual impact while remaining grounded in a semblance of martial realism. Rain's performance combines his physical prowess with an almost cinematic fluidity, integrating weapons-based combat with hand-to-hand techniques. The use of swords, chains, and throwing knives is not merely aesthetic, each weapon is integrated into the storytelling, symbolizing Raizo's past, his training, and his inner turmoil. The combat sequences are interwoven with narrative beats, ensuring that action never feels gratuitous but instead contributes to character development and plot progression. The stylistic choice of emphasizing blood, motion, and dramatic camera angles creates a visceral experience, immersing the audience in Raizo's perspective and conveying the brutal reality of the ninja world. The Ozunu Clan itself is depicted with a blend of mythic resonance and operational realism. Their secrecy, rituals, and strict codes of conduct evoke a sense of ancient tradition juxtaposed against the modern urban environment in which much of the film is set. This interplay of past and present enhances the narrative's depth, as the clan is portrayed not merely as antagonists but as a symbol of unyielding authoritarian control and moral corruption. The internal hierarchies and rivalries within the clan provide additional layers of tension, as Raizo confronts not only external threats but also the psychological legacy of his upbringing. The film explores the notion that the most formidable enemy is often the one within, embodied in Raizo's struggle to reconcile his lethal skills with his desire for personal freedom and justice. The climactic sequences of the film are set against the backdrop of the Ozunu Clan's hidden temple, a labyrinthine structure symbolizing both the physical and moral complexity of Raizo's journey. The final battle is meticulously crafted, combining large-scale combat with intimate confrontations, highlighting Raizo's ingenuity, skill, and resolve. Here, the narrative threads converge, Raizo's personal vendetta, Mika's investigative efforts, and Europol's intervention all coalesce into a crescendo of action, tension, and catharsis. The destruction of the temple and the death of Lord Ozunu serve as a narrative and symbolic resolution, representing the dismantling of oppressive structures and Raizo's liberation from his past. The cast supporting Rain's performance contributes significantly to the film's depth. Naomie Harris as Mika Coretti embodies intelligence, courage, and resilience, providing a moral anchor amidst the chaos. Rick Yoon's portrayal of Takashi, Raizo's former rival within the clan, adds tension and complexity, as their confrontations are fueled by both personal history and ideological conflict. Sho Kosugi's embodiment of Lord Ozunu brings gravitas, menace, and a sense of mythic authority, grounding the film's otherwise heightened stylistic elements. The ensemble cast effectively balances character development with action-driven storytelling, ensuring that the narrative maintains emotional weight alongside kinetic spectacle. From a production standpoint, Ninja Assassin leveraged both studio and location shooting to achieve its visual style. Filming took place primarily at Babelsberg Studios in Germany, complemented by on-location shoots in Berlin. The urban landscapes provide a stark contrast to the traditional ninja training environments, highlighting the collision between ancient martial discipline and contemporary global society. Cinematography emphasizes shadows, motion blur, and rapid cuts to create a sense of disorientation and intensity during action sequences, enhancing the immersive experience. Special effects, including stylized blood and wire-assisted stunts, augment the realism of combat while maintaining a heightened cinematic style consistent with the Wachowskis' vision. The film was released worldwide on November 25, 2009, with its German premiere following shortly after. It was marketed as a high-intensity action thriller with emphasis on Rain's martial arts capabilities, the exoticism of ninja culture, and the unprecedented level of graphic action. The trailer highlighted fast-paced sequences, elaborate weapon combat, and moments of narrative tension, effectively setting audience expectations for both visual spectacle and suspense. Despite its R rating, which restricted its audience, the film attracted significant attention from action enthusiasts, martial arts fans, and followers of Rain's music and acting career. Financially, Ninja Assassin was produced on a budget of approximately $40 million and grossed around $61 million worldwide. While not a major blockbuster, the film achieved a measure of cult status, particularly for its stylized violence, choreography, and Rain's charismatic performance. Its reception highlighted both praise for inventive fight sequences and criticism for narrative simplicity, reflecting the tension inherent in action cinema that prioritizes spectacle alongside story. The film's influence extended into discussions of martial arts in Western cinema, demonstrating the commercial and aesthetic viability of Asian-style martial arts narratives within a Hollywood context. In addition to action, Ninja Assassin explores deeper themes such as loyalty, identity, and the moral cost of violence. Raizo's journey represents a struggle against authoritarianism, the loss of childhood innocence, and the quest for personal autonomy. Mika's investigative role reinforces the importance of truth, accountability, and courage in confronting entrenched systems of power. The interactions between these characters, set against the relentless backdrop of ninja combat, create a narrative tension that is both emotionally and visually compelling, ensuring that the film resonates beyond its surface-level action sequences. The choreography, largely informed by the Wachowskis' prior experience and Rain's own martial arts background, blends traditional ninja techniques with modern cinematic flair. Wire work, acrobatics, and kinetic camera movement are employed to enhance the perception of speed and agility, while careful editing ensures clarity amidst the chaos of combat. Each scene is constructed to maximize impact, balancing aesthetic elegance with narrative significance. The result is a film that, despite occasional narrative simplicity, stands out for its stylistic innovation and technical achievement. One of the defining aspects of Ninja Assassin is the meticulous attention to combat choreography, which serves not only as spectacle but also as an extension of the characters' personalities and histories. Raizo's fights are not merely physical confrontations, they are psychological expressions of his inner struggle. Each movement, strike, and defensive maneuver reflects years of grueling training under the Ozunu Clan, as well as the trauma and discipline that shaped him. The choreography team, informed by the Wachowski cinematic experience, designed sequences that could convey narrative and character in the midst of chaos. For example, when Raizo faces a squad of ninjas in the streets of Berlin, the camera captures his movements in long, fluid takes interspersed with rapid cuts, emphasizing both speed and precision. These sequences demonstrate how Raizo's lethal efficiency is intertwined with his intellect and instinct, portraying him as a tactical thinker as much as a warrior. Each combat encounter in the film is carefully staged to highlight different aspects of Raizo's abilities. Close-quarters fights emphasize agility, quick reflexes, and the deadly precision of blades, while large-scale confrontations integrate environmental elements such as staircases, rooftops, and vehicles to create dynamic, multidimensional battles. Weapons are central to these sequences. Swords, kozurigama, and throwing knives are used with both practicality and stylistic flourish. The kozurigama, a traditional Japanese chain and sickle weapon, becomes a visual and narrative signature for Raizo, representing both his connection to the clan and his evolution into an independent agent of vengeance. These tools are not only effective in combat but also serve as symbolic extensions of the character's identity, blurring the line between weapon and self. Raizo's development is intimately linked with these combat sequences. His initial fights, executed under the Ozunu Clan's orders, are clinical, devoid of personal emotion, emphasizing obedience and technique over creativity. After his rebellion, however, Raizo's movements become more improvisational, adaptive, and expressive, reflecting his growing autonomy and moral agency. This progression is mirrored in the film's cinematography. Early sequences employ static, controlled shots that emphasize discipline, while later encounters use dynamic, sweeping camera work to convey freedom, chaos, and Raizo's personal initiative. The film's opening sequences immediately immerse the viewer in the harsh, disciplined world of the Ozunu Clan. These early scenes depict young Raizo being abducted from a chaotic urban environment, swept into a hidden, almost mystical compound where every aspect of his existence is controlled and monitored. The clan's philosophy is introduced through grueling training montages, where physical punishment, psychological manipulation, and rigid hierarchies shape each child into a lethal weapon. The intensity of this early indoctrination is crucial to understanding Raizo's later moral conflict. Unlike typical action heroes who are trained by choice, Raizo's childhood is defined by coercion and deprivation of normal social bonds. This origin story sets the tone for the film's exploration of control, autonomy, and vengeance. The filmmakers use stark lighting, muted color palettes, and close-up shots to emphasize the oppressive atmosphere of the compound, contrasting it sharply with the vibrant, chaotic energy of Berlin, where Mika operates. Raizo's relationship with Kiriko is central to his emotional development and the narrative's dramatic stakes. Kiriko represents a moral conscience within the Ozunu system. Her resistance to the clan's brutality and her empathy toward other children highlight what Raizo has been denied, normal human connection. Their bond, though briefly depicted, is laden with tension and poignancy. When Kiriko attempts to escape, the Ozunu Clan's response, her capture and execution, is not just a plot device but a narrative statement about the consequences of defiance within a totalitarian system. Raizo witnesses this loss firsthand, and it becomes the turning point that transforms him from a loyal student into a rogue operative. This event establishes the recurring theme of vengeance versus justice, which runs through the entirety of the film. The careful attention to the psychological impact of violence on Raizo distinguishes Ninja Assassin from conventional action films that often focus solely on spectacle. The film then transitions to Berlin, where Mika Coretti is introduced. Her role is both narrative and thematic. She represents the structured, law-abiding world, providing a counterpoint to Raizo's chaotic, survival-driven existence. Mika's forensic work, which initially appears routine, gradually uncovers a web of political corruption and clandestine killings linked to the Ozunu Clan. This juxtaposition, modern investigative techniques versus ancient ninja secrecy, creates a compelling narrative tension. Mika is portrayed as highly competent and intelligent, yet initially unaware of the scale of the threat she faces. Her character's growth parallels Raizo's own journey, as she moves from cautious observer to active participant in confronting a centuries-old network of assassins. Their alliance, formed out of mutual necessity and shared goals, drives the film's central narrative arc. The development of trust between Raizo and Mika is gradual and nuanced, demonstrating that even in a world defined by violence, human connections remain essential. The action sequences in Ninja Assassin are among its most celebrated elements and serve as a visual representation of the character's internal states. Raizo's combat style is fluid and highly disciplined, reflecting his extensive training in strategic mind. Unlike many action films that rely heavily on rapid editing and CGI to depict violence, the filmmakers prioritized physical performance, allowing audiences to follow the choreography clearly. Raizo employs a combination of martial arts techniques, acrobatics, and weapon mastery, making his movements appear both lethal and elegant. Each fight sequence is carefully staged to reflect not only skill but also character psychology. For instance, when Raizo confronts former allies from the clan, the violence is not just physical but emotionally charged, reflecting his internal struggle with loyalty, guilt, and anger. Rain's months of training, which included weapons handling, gymnastics, and stunt work, are evident in the authenticity of these sequences. One particularly notable sequence occurs when Raizo is attacked by multiple assassins in an urban Berlin setting. The choreography emphasizes improvisation and adaptability, as Raizo uses his environment, walls, railings, and everyday objects, to gain advantage over his opponents. This scene blends traditional martial arts movements with parkour-like agility, creating a kinetic visual experience. Blood effects, while stylized, are used to underscore the stakes of combat and the lethal efficiency of the Ozunu-trained assassins. The cinematography, including dynamic camera angles and slow-motion segments, enhances the intensity without obscuring the performer's skill. The filmmaker's decision to integrate practical effects with selective CGI demonstrates a commitment to realism while maintaining cinematic spectacle. These sequences exemplify the balance the film strikes between narrative and action, ensuring that each fight serves both story and character development. The narrative tension escalates as the Ozunu clan directly targets Mika, recognizing that her investigation threatens their operations. This escalation transforms the film from a personal revenge story into a broader narrative about exposing hidden power structures. Mika's capture and subsequent endangerment force Raizo to confront the clan in its most fortified environment, the Hidden Mountain Temple. This location is visually striking, blending traditional Japanese architectural motifs with cinematic stylization, creating a space that feels simultaneously ancient and otherworldly. The temple serves as the perfect backdrop for the film's climactic confrontations, emphasizing isolation, danger, and the high stakes of Raizo's final battle. The assault is meticulously choreographed, featuring Raizo navigating complex interior spaces, engaging in multi-layered combat with numerous adversaries, and using both stealth and direct confrontation to achieve his goals. These sequences highlight the filmmaker's attention to spatial awareness and tactical movement, reinforcing Raizo's intelligence and mastery as a ninja assassin. Lord Ozunu, portrayed by Sho Kosugi, embodies the film's thematic exploration of control and tradition. His character is not merely a villain but a representation of institutionalized brutality and the moral rigidity of the clan system. Kosugi's performance emphasizes discipline, authority, and physical presence, making the climactic confrontation with Raizo not only a physical battle but a symbolic struggle between old and new, oppression and freedom. The final showdown is staged with cinematic grandeur, incorporating both large-scale action elements, such as helicopters and tactical teams, and intimate hand-to-hand combat, emphasizing the duality of the conflict. The resolution, which sees Raizo defeating Ozunu and liberating Mika, provides narrative closure while reinforcing the film's central themes of personal agency, revenge, and moral choice. The supporting cast contributes significantly to the depth of the narrative. Ben Miles as Ryan Maslow adds a bureaucratic and procedural perspective, highlighting the institutional challenges faced by law enforcement when confronting secretive organizations. Rick Yoon's portrayal of Takashi, a rival trainee, underscores the tension between loyalty and competition within the Ozunu clan. Anna Sawai's performance as Kiriko, though limited in screen time, has a profound narrative impact, as her death catalyzes Raizo's transformation. These characters, combined with the presence of skilled martial arts performers in minor roles, enrich the film's world building, demonstrating the pervasive influence of the clan and the stakes of Raizo's rebellion. From a production standpoint, Ninja Assassin represents a fusion of international filmmaking practices. The decision to film in Berlin and Potsdam allowed the filmmakers to construct large, controlled sets while taking advantage of the region's architecture and landscapes to evoke both modern urban environments and isolated, traditional spaces. The collaboration between Western directors, producers, and Asian martial arts experts ensured that the action sequences maintained authenticity while appealing to a global audience. The integration of practical stunts, wire work, and selective CGI created a visually dynamic film that balanced realism and cinematic spectacle. Rain's commitment to performing his own stunts, along with extensive choreography rehearsals, contributed to the film's credibility as a martial arts action piece. The release of Ninja Assassin in late 2009 positioned it within a competitive action film market, yet its combination of international talent, stylized violence, and unique narrative elements distinguished it from contemporaneous offerings. The film's trailers emphasized Rain's acrobatic prowess, the dark aesthetic of the ninja world, and the blend of ancient traditions with modern investigative techniques. These marketing efforts successfully communicated the film's identity as a high-energy martial arts thriller while appealing to both traditional action fans and audiences seeking stylistically distinct cinema. The R rating, reflecting intense violence and bloody combat, was consistent with the film's commitment to depicting the lethal realities of ninja warfare without undue sanitization. The production of Ninja Assassin represents a highly ambitious endeavor to merge traditional martial arts cinema with contemporary Hollywood action filmmaking. The film's conception was influenced by the growing global interest in martial arts as a cinematic spectacle, with particular attention to the popularity of stylized, high-intensity fight sequences in Asian and Western markets alike. The producers, including Joel Silver and the Wachowski siblings, aimed to create a film that would resonate with international audiences, blending the mythos of the ninja with modern, urbanized settings. From the outset, the film's budget of approximately $30 million was strategically allocated to ensure the highest level of visual and technical fidelity, particularly in combat choreography, stunt coordination, and visual effects integration. Filming took place across several international locations, with a significant portion shot in Berlin, Germany. The urban landscapes of Berlin provided a visually dynamic backdrop for the film's numerous chase and combat sequences, offering architectural diversity, rooftop vistas, and narrow alleyways conducive to dynamic action choreography. Production designers and location scouts worked closely to identify environments that would maximize visual impact while enabling the execution of complex stunts. The decision to film in real-world locations, as opposed to entirely constructed sets, added authenticity and scale to the action, allowing for immersive fight sequences that leveraged the physical environment in creative ways. Stunt coordination was central to the film's production, given its emphasis on martial arts combat. The choreography team, comprising experienced martial artists and stunt professionals, developed sequences that combined traditional ninjutsu techniques with elements of parkour, acrobatics, and cinematic exaggeration. Raizo's movements, for instance, were designed to reflect both lethal precision and aesthetic fluidity, emphasizing skill, strategy, and narrative significance. Each fight sequence underwent rigorous planning, with multiple rehearsals to ensure both safety and visual coherence. Wirework was extensively used to facilitate acrobatic maneuvers, allowing actors to perform gravity-defying flips, wall runs, and extended mid-air sequences that would be impossible without technical assistance. The integration of wirework with practical stunts required careful coordination between actors, stunt doubles, and visual effects teams to maintain continuity and believability. The visual effects team played a crucial role in enhancing the film's action sequences, particularly in moments that required exaggeration or impossible feats. CGI was employed sparingly but effectively, primarily to extend wire-assisted movements, augment environmental hazards, and enhance weapon dynamics. For example, shuriken trajectories, sword clashes, and certain mid-air combat sequences were digitally enhanced to emphasize speed and impact, creating a heightened sense of danger without undermining the physical performances of the actors. The collaboration between stunt coordinators, cinematographers, and visual effects artists ensured that each sequence maintained a balance between realism, narrative clarity, and stylistic flair. Cinematography was carefully designed to complement the choreography and narrative pacing. Director James McTeague and director of photography utilized a combination of dynamic camera angles, tracking shots, crane movements, and aerial perspectives to capture the fluidity and intensity of the combat sequences. Slow-motion shots were employed strategically to emphasize critical strikes, acrobatic maneuvers, and moments of tension, allowing the audience to appreciate the technical skill involved while heightening dramatic impact. Lighting choices, particularly in nighttime and indoor sequences, emphasized shadow, contrast, and the clandestine nature of the Ozunu Clan, reinforcing thematic elements of secrecy, danger, and moral ambiguity. The production team also paid meticulous attention to costume and prop design, integral to both narrative and action functionality. Raizo's attire was designed to balance practicality, stealth, and aesthetic appeal, allowing freedom of movement necessary for acrobatic combat while visually signaling his identity as a highly trained assassin. The Ozunu Clan's uniforms and ceremonial garments reinforced hierarchical structure and thematic elements of tradition, loyalty, and ideological rigidity. Weaponry was similarly designed for visual impact and functional performance. Katanas, shuriken, and other ninja implements were constructed to withstand repeated use during action sequences, while also maintaining a polished and stylized appearance on camera. Props were often integrated into choreography creatively, turning environmental objects into extensions of combat strategy, such as using railings, scaffolding, or debris to enhance strikes and maneuvers. The film's sound design and musical score further augmented production quality and narrative engagement. Composer Paul Haslinger integrated traditional Japanese instruments with modern electronic elements to create a sonic landscape that reinforced tension, pace, and emotional resonance. The sound effects, particularly in combat sequences, were carefully engineered to accentuate the impact of strikes, weapon clashes, and environmental interaction, creating an immersive auditory experience that complemented the visual spectacle. Music and sound design were also employed to signal narrative shifts, heighten suspense, and underscore character development, particularly during key confrontations or moments of personal reflection for Raizo. Directorial choices by James McTeague, informed by the Wachowski siblings' stylistic influence, emphasized tight pacing, visual storytelling, and kinetic energy. Exposition was minimized, allowing action sequences to carry narrative weight and develop character through movement, choice, and strategy rather than dialogue alone. This approach required precise coordination between actors, stunt teams, cinematographers, and editors to ensure clarity of spatial orientation, continuity, and storytelling coherence. Editing was crucial in maintaining rhythm and tension, with rapid cuts in combat sequences contrasting with slower, contemplative shots during moments of reflection, internal conflict, or dialogue-driven exposition. Training and preparation for actors were extensive. Rain, portraying Raizo, underwent months of martial arts training, weapons handling, and stunt rehearsals to ensure authenticity in performance. Naomie Harris also received physical training to navigate combat sequences, develop believable movement, and convey realistic reactions to attacks, despite her character's lack of formal martial arts background. Stunt doubles were employed for particularly dangerous or complex maneuvers, but the actor's commitment to performing as many practical stunts as possible enhanced believability and audience immersion. The collaborative effort between performers, choreographers, and production designers was integral to the seamless integration of narrative, character development, and action spectacle. The cultural and cinematic influences on Ninja Assassin are extensive and multidimensional. The film draws inspiration from traditional Japanese ninja folklore, which emphasizes stealth, discipline, and mastery of martial arts, while simultaneously incorporating Western action aesthetics characterized by urbanized settings, kinetic cinematography, and heightened spectacle. Comparisons can be drawn to classic martial arts films, including those from Hong Kong cinema, where intricate choreography, acrobatics, and weapon mastery are central to narrative expression. However, Ninja Assassin diverges from traditional depictions by situating the narrative in a contemporary, globalized context, blending historical mythology with modern espionage, political intrigue, and investigative procedural elements. The filmmakers also drew on the visual style of neo-noir cinema, employing shadow, contrast, and urban architecture to create an atmosphere of danger, ambiguity, and moral complexity. This aesthetic choice reinforces thematic elements of secrecy, ethical ambiguity, and the psychological consequences of violence, providing a backdrop against which Raizo's internal conflict and moral reasoning are foregrounded. The integration of these stylistic influences demonstrates a conscious effort to create a hybrid cinematic experience that appeals to both action enthusiasts and audiences interested in thematic depth and character-driven storytelling. The soundtrack of Ninja Assassin plays an essential role in shaping the film's rhythm, tone, and emotional resonance. The score combines traditional Japanese instrumentation with contemporary orchestral and electronic elements, creating a sonic landscape that underscores both the action and the psychological depth of the characters. Percussive elements accentuate combat sequences, emphasizing the precision, timing, and impact of each strike. Strings and electronic textures provide tension during stealth sequences, while ambient and atmospheric sounds accompany moments of reflection or emotional intensity, particularly scenes involving Raizo's internal struggle or interactions with Mika. The fusion of traditional and modern sounds mirrors the film's visual aesthetic, blending ancient ninja mythology with contemporary filmmaking techniques. Music cues are carefully synchronized with choreography, ensuring that combat sequences feel rhythmic and immersive, enhancing the viewer's experience of both action and narrative progression. A detailed scene-by-scene breakdown reveals the meticulous planning behind the film's structure. The opening scenes introduce Raizo as a child within the Ozunu Clan, showing his rigorous training and the psychological conditioning imposed by Lord Ozunu. These early sequences establish the stakes and the oppressive environment that frames the entire narrative. The death of Kiriko occurs shortly thereafter, serving as the narrative pivot that motivates Raizo's eventual rebellion. In the middle act, Raizo's escape from the clan is intercut with Mika's investigation, creating a parallel narrative that builds tension and situates the story in a broader geopolitical context. Each encounter between Raizo and the assassins he faces after leaving the clan is crafted to highlight his growing independence, tactical creativity, and moral awakening. Environmental interactions, such as rooftop chases, industrial interiors, and urban alleyways, provide unique settings that amplify both the danger and visual spectacle of the fight sequences. The climactic sequence at the Ozunu fortress serves as the narrative and thematic culmination of the film. Raizo infiltrates the compound, confronting numerous adversaries while navigating vertical platforms, narrow corridors, and multi-level spaces that allow for visually dynamic combat choreography. The final duel with Lord Ozunu is carefully staged to emphasize both martial skill and ideological conflict. Slow-motion sequences, dramatic camera angles, and sound design work together to heighten tension and emotional stakes, creating a final confrontation that is both a visual spectacle and a symbolic resolution of Raizo's internal and external struggles. The destruction of the fortress and Raizo's emergence into sunlight symbolizes the triumph of individual agency over systemic oppression, visually reinforcing the film's central themes. Box office performance for Ninja Assassin was moderate but notable for its niche appeal. The film premiered in the United States on November 25, 2009, and was subsequently released in international markets, including Germany, the United Kingdom, and several Asian countries. While it did not achieve blockbuster status, it performed well among fans of martial arts cinema and attracted attention due to Rain's international popularity and the film's stylistic boldness. The moderate commercial success reflected the challenges of marketing a stylized, action-heavy film to a broad audience while also highlighting its effectiveness within the action and martial arts niche. Audience reception was similarly mixed, with many viewers praising the film's choreography, visual style, and commitment to martial arts authenticity. Rain's performance as Raizo received particular acclaim, with critics noting his ability to combine athleticism, martial skill, and emotional nuance. Conversely, some critics felt that the narrative was straightforward and that secondary characters could have been more fully developed, suggesting that the emphasis on action occasionally overshadowed storytelling. Despite these critiques, the film garnered a dedicated following, particularly among martial arts enthusiasts, action fans, and international audiences familiar with Rain's prior work. Over time, it has developed a cult status, celebrated for its energetic combat, dark visual style, and bold fusion of tradition and modernity. Culturally, Ninja Assassin contributed to the resurgence of ninja-themed action films in the late 2000s, blending traditional martial arts mythology with contemporary cinematic technology. The film's depiction of ninja clans as secretive, disciplined, and almost mythological entities resonated with global audiences, reinforcing popular conceptions of ninjas while introducing new stylistic interpretations. Its influence can be seen in subsequent action films that adopt similar stylistic choices, including high-intensity combat, CGI-enhanced martial arts, and the integration of ideological conflict into fight sequences. The film also highlighted the potential for international stars like Rain to bridge Eastern and Western cinema, demonstrating the appeal of martial arts films that combine global talent, technical innovation, and culturally resonant storytelling. The legacy of Ninja Assassin extends beyond its initial release. It remains a reference point for stylized martial arts cinema, celebrated for its choreography, visual design, and integration of traditional ninja mythology with contemporary filmmaking. Its commitment to rigorous martial arts authenticity, combined with cinematic spectacle, has influenced subsequent productions within the genre. Raizo's character arc, from indoctrinated assassin to autonomous individual, offers a compelling study of personal transformation, moral awakening, and the costs of liberation, providing narrative depth often absent from action-focused films. The film's approach to blending action, character development, thematic exploration, and visual innovation serves as a case study in how martial arts cinema can balance spectacle with storytelling, influencing filmmakers and audiences alike. Behind the scenes, production anecdotes reveal the level of dedication required to bring the film to life. Filming in Germany, particularly in Berlin and surrounding locations, involved constructing complex sets that allowed for vertical and multi-level combat sequences. Practical stunts were extensively rehearsed, with the cast performing physically demanding sequences that required coordination, precision, and safety awareness. Rain's preparation included months of training, not only in martial arts techniques but also in understanding the psychological and thematic motivations of Raizo. The collaboration between stunt coordinators, choreographers, and cinematographers ensured that the film maintained a balance between realism, visual impact, and narrative significance. After Raizo's initial escape from the Ozunu Clan, the film meticulously develops his integration into the modern urban world, contrasting his lethal upbringing with the unfamiliarity and unpredictability of civilian life. Berlin, chosen as the primary setting for his post-Clan sequences, serves as more than a backdrop, it is a dynamic participant in the narrative. The city's architecture, ranging from modern office complexes to industrial warehouses and narrow, rain-slick streets, provides multiple levels of spatial interaction for combat choreography. Raizo's movements reflect this relationship. He scales walls with feline agility, uses pipes and railings for leverage, and engages enemies while integrating vertical and horizontal planes. The cinematography, often employing sweeping tracking shots, crane shots, and carefully choreographed handheld sequences, emphasizes the spatial intelligence required for survival. Every movement communicates both tactical precision and narrative intent, reflecting Raizo's transformation from tool of the clan to autonomous agent. Mika Coretti's introduction into this world provides the audience with a grounded, human perspective. Unlike Raizo, she is untrained in martial arts, her threat exposure is primarily cognitive and emotional. The filmmakers juxtapose her vulnerability with Raizo's lethal expertise, creating suspense and establishing the stakes. In her initial encounter with Raizo, the tension is amplified through a combination of visual and auditory techniques, tight framing, quick cuts, and ambient city noises contrast with the sudden, controlled violence of Raizo's intervention. The choreography here is deliberately restrained, highlighting Raizo's efficiency and Mika's reliance on observation, decision-making, and adaptability. Their interactions gradually evolve from necessity to collaboration, underscoring one of the film's core thematic threads, the integration of intelligence and skill, emotion and action, in overcoming seemingly insurmountable threats. The first major rooftop battle between Raizo and Takeshi exemplifies the film's intricate choreography and thematic depth. Set against a storm-laden Berlin skyline, the environment is fully integrated into the combat. Rain-slicked surfaces, narrow ledges, and scaffolding become weapons and hazards simultaneously. Each movement, leaps, spins, parries, is meticulously staged to communicate both physical skill and psychological strategy. The slow-motion sequences punctuate key strikes, emphasizing their lethal potential and aesthetic precision. Takeshi's movements are rigid, embodying the Ozunu's doctrine of absolute obedience, while Raizo's adaptive style reflects strategic autonomy and emotional fluidity. Close-up shots capture micro-expressions, the determination in Raizo's eyes, the cold focus in Takeshi's, creating a dual narrative that is both physical and psychological. Flashbacks punctuate these sequences, providing insight into Raizo's formative experiences. The death of Kiriko, a moment of profound emotional resonance, is recalled through desaturated visuals, slower pacing, and soft focus, contrasting sharply with the kinetic present-day action. These flashbacks are not merely expository but are narrative catalysts, shaping Raizo's decisions and enhancing audience empathy. They reinforce the inextricable link between memory and action, showing how past trauma informs present behavior, especially in high-stakes combat situations. The warehouse infiltration sequence is a masterclass in layered choreography and environmental storytelling. Raizo and Mika navigate multiple attackers, integrating stealth, hand-to-hand combat, and improvised weapon use. The filmmakers employ long tracking shots to capture spatial relationships, intercut with rapid cuts that heighten tension and emphasize critical moments of action. Each combatant is treated as an individual narrative element. The positioning, approach, and defeat of each enemy communicates Raizo's superior tactical intelligence. Mika's role, while less physically adept, is crucial. She anticipates threats, coordinates with Raizo, and leverages environmental features, demonstrating the synthesis of skill and intellect. As Raizo confronts Takashi and the Ozunu elite in subsequent sequences, the film's visual storytelling becomes increasingly complex. Multi-level combat scenarios are staged across staircases, scaffolds, and confined spaces, requiring precise coordination between stunt performers, camera operators, and editors. The result is a visually coherent yet chaotic sequence that conveys the overwhelming odds faced by the protagonists. Lighting and color grading reinforce narrative tension, shadows obscure hidden threats, flashes of neon or fire highlight imminent danger, and muted tones emphasize the oppressive nature of the clan's influence. Raizo and Mika's relationship evolves in parallel with these physical challenges. Early interactions are marked by mutual suspicion and necessity. However, as they confront shared danger, their partnership deepens. Narrative sequences emphasize trust-building, coordination, and ethical dialogue. Raizo's lethal instincts are tempered by Mika's moral framework, illustrating the central thematic assertion that agency and redemption are achieved through human connection. Their emotional arc reaches a climax during the Ozunu compound infiltration, where synchronized combat sequences highlight their interdependence. Raizo neutralizes immediate threats while Mika manipulates environmental and tactical variables, creating a collaborative synergy that transcends individual skill. The final confrontation with the Ozunu master is both a physical and ideological battle. Choreography here emphasizes precision, acrobatics, and environmental awareness, with each strike symbolizing Raizo's rejection of indoctrination. Cinematic techniques, alternating wide shots for spatial comprehension and close-ups for emotional impact, allow viewers to appreciate both the artistry and narrative significance of each movement. Sound design and score accentuate the intensity. Each blade strike, footfall, and breath is amplified to convey urgency and consequence. The culmination of this sequence is not merely Raizo's physical victory but his moral triumph, the assertion of choice, the reclamation of identity, and the definitive break from the clan's psychological and physical control. From a production perspective, the film represents a sophisticated fusion of international filmmaking techniques. Rain underwent months of intense martial arts training to perform a majority of his own stunts, including weapon handling, acrobatics, and close-quarter combat. Stunt coordination involved precise choreography for complex sequences requiring multiple performers in confined or elevated spaces. Cinematographers Carl Walter Lindenlaub and editing teams utilized a combination of stabilized tracking shots, handheld perspectives, and rapid cut sequences to create both visual coherence and kinetic intensity. Costume and production design were meticulously planned to facilitate movement, highlight character evolution, and maintain thematic symbolism. The reception of Ninja Assassin at the time of release reflected the challenges of balancing narrative depth with stylized action. While critics praised the choreography, Rain's performance, and visual design, commentary frequently noted a relatively thin narrative structure. However, the film's impact on audiences, particularly martial arts enthusiasts, has endured. Its integration of Eastern combat philosophy with Western cinematic storytelling, coupled with its stylistic commitment to hyper-realized violence, has influenced subsequent films and media exploring similar themes. International audiences, drawn to Rain's global appeal and the fusion of martial artistry with psychological complexity, contributed significantly to the film's commercial success. The film's legacy is also evident in its influence on narrative and visual conventions within action cinema. Its integration of multi-layered combat choreography, environmental interaction, and character-driven narrative has set a precedent for subsequent martial arts and action films seeking to combine spectacle with emotional depth. Raizo's psychological journey, from indoctrinated assassin to autonomous moral agent, offers a template for exploring complex themes of trauma, loyalty, and redemption within genre cinema. As Ninja Assassin progresses into the heart of its narrative, the pacing intensifies, reflecting both Raizo's growing desperation and the clan's relentless pursuit. One of the film's most memorable sequences occurs when Raizo, now operating outside the confines of the Ozunu Clan, is ambushed in an urban Berlin setting by a squad of ninja assassins. This scene is meticulously staged to showcase not only Raizo's mastery of martial arts but also his ability to adapt to unpredictable environments. The sequence begins with a quiet, suspenseful approach. Raizo senses the danger before it becomes overt, moving fluidly through alleyways, scaling walls, and using the surrounding architecture to his advantage. Unlike traditional action sequences that rely on quick cuts, the cinematography here emphasizes spatial awareness, allowing the audience to follow each movement with clarity. Raizo employs a mix of taijutsu-style hand-to-hand combat, acrobatic flips, and improvised use of everyday objects, trash cans, railings, and scaffolding, to incapacitate multiple attackers in rapid succession. The choreography deliberately mirrors his psychological state. Each strike is precise, efficient, and devoid of unnecessary flourish, reflecting the lethal discipline instilled by his early training. The weapons used in this sequence and throughout the film are as integral to the action as the physical techniques themselves. Raizo's proficiency with traditional ninja weaponry, including the ninjato, shuriken, and kusarigama, is presented with careful attention to realism. Unlike many Hollywood depictions of ninja combat, the film highlights proper handling, defensive positioning, and strategic deployment of weapons. For instance, in one scene, Raizo deflects a shuriken mid-air, counters with a rapid strike using a short blade, and transitions seamlessly into unarmed combat. This fluid integration of weapons and body movement not only demonstrates his skill but also reinforces the narrative theme of a warrior shaped entirely by discipline, precision, and survival instincts. The filmmakers consulted martial arts experts and utilized Rain's extensive training to ensure that each motion appeared authentic, creating a visual language that communicated lethal efficiency without sacrificing cinematic spectacle. Raizo's psychological evolution is as important to the narrative as the action sequences. Early in the film, his motivations are shaped primarily by fear, loyalty, and grief over Kiriko's death. As the story unfolds, his actions are increasingly guided by a sense of justice and moral responsibility. This transformation is particularly evident in his interactions with Mika Coretti. Initially, Raizo views her with cautious detachment, wary of entangling a civilian in his dangerous world. However, as Mika demonstrates intelligence, resilience, and commitment to uncovering the truth, Raizo's protective instincts emerge. Their relationship evolves from a pragmatic alliance into a complex dynamic of trust, reliance, and mutual respect. Mika, in turn, is forced to confront the limits of her conventional investigative methods, realizing that understanding the clan's operations requires both strategic thinking and an acceptance of violence as a necessary tool. This interplay of character arcs adds emotional depth to a film often celebrated for its visual and physical spectacle, creating a layered narrative that engages viewers on multiple levels. The film's exploration of the Ozunu Clan extends beyond Raizo's personal vendetta, offering a glimpse into the organizational philosophy that underpins the clan's lethal operations. Lord Ozunu himself is portrayed as an embodiment of authoritarian control and martial discipline. His approach to training and governance is uncompromising. Every trainee is molded to become an instrument of precision, loyalty, and unquestioning obedience. The clan's methods are extreme, involving physical endurance tests, psychological conditioning, and enforced rituals that blur the line between human development and indoctrination. These sequences, often shown through flashbacks or training montages, highlight the clan's generational continuity and the systemic nature of its influence. The stark contrast between the clan's rigid, secretive traditions and the modern world in which Raizo and Mika operate emphasizes the narrative tension between old and new, secrecy and transparency, discipline and moral choice. This thematic layer elevates Ninja Assassin beyond a simple revenge story, situating it within a broader exploration of power, control, and the consequences of indoctrination. The climax of the film is a masterclass in combining cinematic spectacle with character resolution. The hidden mountain temple, where the Ozunu Clan is headquartered, serves as both a narrative and visual centerpiece. Its construction for the film blends traditional Japanese architectural motifs with a dramatic, stylized design, creating a sense of otherworldliness and danger. As Raizo infiltrates the temple, the action choreography escalates to near mythical levels. He navigates multi-tiered rooms, hallways, and staircases, facing numerous adversaries simultaneously. Each encounter is carefully staged to reflect both his physical skill and strategic thinking, forcing him to make split-second decisions that balance offense, defense, and protection of Mika. The cinematography employs wide shots to capture large-scale combat, as well as tight close-ups that emphasize individual strikes, facial expressions, and the emotional stakes of the confrontation. The visual language here conveys the intensity and personal significance of each battle, reinforcing the narrative theme of overcoming institutionalized oppression through intelligence, skill, and moral courage. The final confrontation with Lord Ozunu encapsulates both the physical and thematic climax of the film. The fight is not only a test of Raizo's martial skill but also a confrontation with the moral and ideological system that shaped his entire life. Ozunu, with his superior experience, strategic mind, and physical prowess, presents a formidable challenge, forcing Raizo to draw upon every lesson learned from his brutal upbringing. The sequence is punctuated by dramatic use of environmental features, including temple columns, platforms, and weapons scattered throughout the space. The choreography combines close-quarter strikes, acrobatic maneuvers, and weapon combat, culminating in a decisive sequence where Raizo exploits both physical skill and psychological insight to defeat his former master. This resolution reinforces the film's central themes, the triumph of individual moral choice over rigid institutional control, and the possibility of redemption through courage, intelligence, and strategic action. The supporting characters' arcs provide additional depth to the narrative. Mika Coretti evolves from a cautious investigator into a proactive participant in the story's resolution. Her forensic skills, intelligence, and determination are crucial in exposing the clan's operations and ultimately surviving the climactic assault. Ben Miles' character, Ryan Moslow, provides a bureaucratic lens on law enforcement operations, illustrating the constraints and procedural limitations faced by traditional authorities when confronted with extraordinary threats. Rick Yunes Takashi and Anna Sawai's Kiriko contribute to the personal and emotional stakes, reinforcing the dangers and consequences of the clan's influence. Each character, whether central or peripheral, functions as part of a narrative ecosystem that reinforces the high-stakes, morally complex world Raizo inhabits. Production elements further enhance the film's immersive experience. The decision to film primarily in Berlin and Potsdam allowed for a controlled environment in which elaborate sets could be constructed. The Ozunu Temple, a central set piece, was designed to facilitate dynamic fight choreography, enabling complex camera movements, wirework, and stunt integration. Rain's extensive training, which encompassed martial arts, gymnastics, weapons handling, and stunt work, ensured that the sequences could be performed with minimal reliance on doubles. The stunt coordination, led by members of the renowned 8711 stunt group, emphasized safety, precision, and visual clarity, resulting in fight scenes that are both believable and cinematic. The combination of practical effects, selective CGI, and stylized blood effects creates a heightened reality that serves both the story and the visual spectacle. Marketing and release strategies positioned Ninja Assassin as a major international action film. The world premiere occurred in the United States on November 25, 2009, with Warner Bros. Pictures handling distribution. Trailers highlighted Rain's martial arts skills, the intensity of the action sequences, and the film's dark, stylistic aesthetic. The R rating, due to bloody violence and combat intensity, aligned with audience expectations for adult-oriented martial arts thrillers. International releases capitalized on Rain's popularity in Asia, while Western marketing emphasized the film's high-octane action and innovative choreography. The reception was mixed, with critics praising the physical performances and fight sequences but critiquing narrative and character development in places. Despite this, the film achieved cult status among martial arts enthusiasts and action fans, celebrated for its stylistic commitment, choreography, and blending of Eastern martial arts traditions with Western cinematic techniques. Beyond the primary characters of Raizo and Mika, every supporting character in Ninja Assassin serves a narrative or thematic purpose, enriching the story and reinforcing the film's exploration of loyalty, morality, and the consequences of violence. Takashi, portrayed by Rick Yoon, exemplifies the consequences of absolute obedience. Raised alongside Raizo in the Ozunu Clan, Takashi is deeply indoctrinated, believing unwaveringly in the clan's methods and Lord Ozunu's authority. While Raizo evolves and questions the moral legitimacy of the clan's actions, Takashi remains rigidly loyal, demonstrating the ideological spectrum between compliance and autonomy. Their confrontations are layered with tension, as each strike carries moral and philosophical weight. Takashi is not merely a foil, he represents a path that Raizo might have taken had he not experienced loss and moral awakening. The character embodies the cost of indoctrination and the psychological consequences of surrendering personal judgment to an institution, illustrating a critical thematic axis of the film, the struggle between individual morality and systemic control. Lord Ozunu, portrayed by Sho Kosugi, functions as the ultimate embodiment of authoritarian power within the film. His philosophy emphasizes the supremacy of the clan over personal agency, and his calculated, disciplined approach underscores the ideological and physical mastery that makes him formidable. Unlike Takashi, whose loyalty is personal and emotional, Ozunu's control is structural, enforcing obedience through intimidation, psychological conditioning, and tactical supremacy. The confrontations between Raizo and Ozunu are as much psychological as physical, serving as the culmination of the film's exploration of freedom versus oppression. The final duel is choreographed to highlight this tension, with each movement, strike, and defensive action reflecting not only martial skill but ideological conflict. Ozunu's character reinforces the broader narrative that systemic power structures often rely on fear and control, providing a foil against which Raizo's moral and personal liberation is measured. Kiriko, though limited in screen time, is pivotal to Raizo's psychological development. Her empathy, curiosity, and subtle defiance act as a mirror to the humanity Raizo still possesses despite years of conditioning. Her tragic death is staged to resonate emotionally, catalyzing Raizo's rejection of the Ozunu clan and establishing the stakes of his rebellion. In narrative terms, she represents innocence lost and the ethical consequences of authoritarian control. Her role underscores the moral framework of the film, highlighting the human cost of violence and the personal consequences of institutionalized cruelty. Thematically, Ninja Assassin explores the tension between freedom and control, morality and obedience, and personal agency versus systemic oppression. Raizo's journey illustrates the transformative potential of ethical choice and self-determination, contrasting sharply with characters like Takashi and Ozunu who embody compliance and control. The film also examines the psychological costs of indoctrination, depicting how training and conditioning can suppress empathy, morality, and individuality. Through Raizo's interactions with Mika and his eventual rebellion, the narrative suggests that liberation requires both courage and moral clarity, and that reclaiming one's agency comes with risk, sacrifice, and responsibility. Critical reviews of Ninja Assassin were varied but highlighted key strengths and weaknesses. Many critics praised the film's choreography, visual style, and Rain's physical performance, noting the innovative integration of martial arts and cinematic techniques. The use of slow-motion sequences, environmental interaction, and CGI-enhanced combat was frequently cited as elevating the film above conventional action fare. Conversely, some critics felt that the narrative was straightforward and that secondary characters could have been developed more fully, arguing that the emphasis on spectacle occasionally overshadowed storytelling. Despite these critiques, Ninja Assassin received appreciation for its dedication to martial arts authenticity, stylized violence, and the compelling arc of its central character. The lasting influence of Ninja Assassin can be observed in several areas of cinema. The film contributed to a renewed interest in ninja-themed action films during the late 2000s, blending mythological elements with contemporary filmmaking techniques. Its use of vertical and multi-level environments for combat sequences influenced subsequent action films seeking dynamic choreography beyond traditional flat-surface encounters. Furthermore, the casting of an international star like Rain highlighted the potential for cross-cultural appeal, demonstrating that martial arts cinema could attract global audiences while maintaining stylistic and narrative integrity. The film's emphasis on character-driven action, where physical conflict mirrors psychological and ideological struggles, has been cited in discussions of how martial arts films can combine spectacle with thematic depth. The narrative synthesis of Ninja Assassin emphasizes the interweaving of action, character development, and thematic exploration. Raizo's arc, from indoctrinated assassin to morally conscious, autonomous individual, serves as the backbone of the story, providing coherence across diverse sequences and locations. Mika Coretti's investigative role grounds the narrative in a broader political and moral context, ensuring that the story extends beyond isolated combat encounters. Secondary characters, including Takashi, Kiriko, and Lord Ozunu, reinforce thematic contrasts, highlighting the consequences of obedience, the cost of authority, and the potential for moral redemption. The choreography, visual design, and soundtrack work synergistically to enhance these narrative elements, ensuring that action sequences are not mere spectacle but extensions of character, theme, and psychological tension. From a production standpoint, the film reflects meticulous planning, collaboration, and technical innovation. Filming in Berlin and surrounding areas allowed for diverse urban and industrial environments, facilitating dynamic combat sequences and visually striking compositions. Practical stunts, combined with CGI enhancements, created a realistic yet heightened action experience, allowing performers to execute complex maneuvers safely while maintaining the film's kinetic energy. The rigorous preparation of Rain and other actors ensured that fight sequences were both authentic and narratively expressive, while cinematography and sound design amplified the emotional and visual impact of each scene. In conclusion, Ninja Assassin occupies a unique position in contemporary martial arts cinema, combining high-energy action with psychological depth, thematic exploration, and stylistic innovation. Its narrative examines the tension between individual agency and systemic control, the consequences of indoctrination, and the moral implications of violence, all within the framework of visually arresting combat sequences. The performances, choreography, production design, and soundtrack collectively create a cohesive and immersive experience, establishing the film as both a thrilling action spectacle and a study in character and ideology. Its influence on subsequent martial arts films, its cult following, and its integration of cross-cultural talent underscore its significance within the genre, ensuring its continued relevance and appreciation among audiences and critics alike. Upon its release on November 25, 2009, Ninja Assassin garnered significant attention for its unprecedented level of stylized violence and intense martial arts choreography. Critics were divided in their assessments, often highlighting the film's technical and aesthetic achievements while critiquing narrative depth and character development. Many reviewers praised Rain's performance, emphasizing his physicality, fluidity in combat, and ability to convey internal conflict through subtle gestures and expressions. His transition from a K-pop star to a Hollywood action lead was widely regarded as successful, with his disciplined movement, martial arts prowess, and screen presence receiving commendation. Critics noted that while Raizo's emotional and psychological complexity provided narrative interest, the film's emphasis on kinetic action sometimes overshadowed character exploration, leaving certain relational and ethical dynamics underdeveloped. Naomie Harris's portrayal of Mika Coretti also received positive attention for providing a grounded, morally centered counterpoint to Raizo's lethal skill set. Harris effectively balanced vulnerability and resilience, creating a character capable of navigating both procedural investigation and life-threatening confrontations. Audience reception emphasized her role as an emotional anchor, highlighting the importance of her interactions with Raizo in humanizing the story and reinforcing thematic explorations of trust, morality, and cooperation. Critics acknowledged her contribution to narrative tension and ethical framing, noting that Mika's presence elevated the film beyond a simple spectacle of martial arts combat. Conversely, some critics argued that the narrative was thin, with plot motivations occasionally underexplored and supporting characters minimally developed. Takeshi, while formidable as a physical antagonist, was criticized for limited psychological depth beyond loyalty and aggression. Lord Ozunu, as a narrative symbol of authoritarian control, was seen as effective in thematic terms but lacking in dimensionality as a character. These criticisms highlight the tension inherent in action-driven films, balancing spectacle, pacing, and visual engagement with narrative complexity and character development. While the film succeeds in visual and kinetic terms, some narrative and emotional beats were perceived as secondary to the emphasis on fight choreography. Audience interpretation, particularly among martial arts enthusiasts and fans of action cinema, tended to be more favorable. The intensity, creativity, and technical precision of fight sequences were widely appreciated, with many viewers considering the film a modern benchmark in choreographed combat for Hollywood productions. Online forums, fan communities, and international viewers often praised the blending of Eastern martial arts philosophy with Western cinematic aesthetics, noting that the film successfully modernized ninja mythology while retaining core elements of discipline, stealth, and lethal skill. The combination of high-energy action, global settings, and contemporary espionage elements contributed to a perception of Ninja Assassin as an innovative and genre-expanding entry in martial arts cinema. The film's violence, however, became a point of controversy. The stylized depiction of blood, dismemberment, and highly choreographed combat sequences prompted debates regarding cinematic taste, censorship, and the ethical implications of excessive stylized gore. While the R rating in the United States acknowledged the film's mature content, international markets responded variably, with some regions requesting edits or imposing stricter ratings to mitigate the intensity of action. Critics and cultural commentators debated whether the extreme violence served narrative purpose or was primarily spectacle-driven. Supporters argued that the stylized brutality was integral to illustrating the lethal philosophy of the Ozunu Clan and the psychological and moral stakes confronting Raizo, while detractors perceived it as excessive and potentially desensitizing. Box office performance reflected a moderate commercial success, grossing approximately $61 million worldwide against a production budget of $30 million. The domestic performance in the United States was complemented by strong international reception, particularly in Asia and Europe, where audiences demonstrated enthusiasm for high-octane martial arts sequences integrated with urban action settings. Home media releases, including DVD and Blu-ray, further expanded viewership, providing extended fight sequences, behind-the-scenes insights, and commentary that enhanced appreciation for choreography, stunt work, and production design. These releases contributed to the film's cult following among action aficionados and martial arts enthusiasts, solidifying its position in contemporary action cinema. The film also generated discourse regarding the fusion of traditional ninja mythos with contemporary cinematic storytelling. Analysts highlighted the interplay between cultural heritage and modern action tropes, emphasizing how the film balanced reverence for historical martial arts principles with cinematic exaggeration and narrative adaptation. The portrayal of Raizo as both a humanized anti-hero and a hyper-skilled assassin prompted discussions of morality, ethical decision-making, and psychological realism within a fantastical narrative framework. Mika's role in mediating ethical considerations further reinforced the narrative's engagement with themes of justice, accountability, and relational psychology in high-stakes environments. Critics also examined the broader cinematic influences evident in Ninja Assassin. Comparisons were made to Hong Kong action cinema, classic samurai and ninja films, and Hollywood action franchises that emphasize spectacle and kinetic choreography. The film's stylistic choices, including slow-motion sequences, high-contrast lighting, and urban rooftop chases, were contextualized within a lineage of action filmmaking that prioritizes visual engagement, spatial clarity, and narrative tension. This cross-cultural synthesis was recognized as a distinguishing factor, demonstrating how the film navigated the intersection of global martial arts traditions and Western cinematic conventions. Despite mixed critical reception, the legacy of Ninja Assassin is significant within martial arts and action cinema. The film expanded the possibilities for integrating traditional martial arts training, psychological complexity, and urbanized, contemporary settings in Hollywood productions. Rain's successful transition to a physically and emotionally compelling action lead opened pathways for international performers in Western cinema. The choreography and production design influenced subsequent action films, particularly those seeking to fuse stylized combat with narrative depth and character-driven stakes. The film's emphasis on psychological realism, strategic combat, and ethical complexity within a fantastical martial arts framework has been cited as a reference point for filmmakers exploring similar genre hybrids. International audiences, particularly in East Asia and Europe, responded positively to the blending of mythological elements with modern storytelling, appreciating the nuanced choreography, environmental integration, and globalized aesthetic. Fan communities have continued to discuss and analyze fight sequences, character psychology, and thematic motifs, sustaining the film's relevance in martial arts discourse. The film's inclusion in academic and cinematic discussions highlights its significance as a case study in cross-cultural action filmmaking, narrative adaptation, and the ethical and psychological dimensions of stylized violence. Controversy surrounding the film's violence also contributed to its cultural footprint. Debates regarding the depiction of extreme action, ethical framing of combat, and narrative necessity of gore have persisted in reviews, forums, and scholarly articles. The film's approach to violence has been analyzed as both spectacle and narrative device, emphasizing the consequences of martial and ideological extremism while challenging audiences to consider the moral implications of Raizo's choices and the institutional cruelty of the Ozunu Clan. This duality, as entertainment and ethical commentary, underscores the film's complexity and enduring relevance. Following Raizo's initial encounters in Berlin, the narrative progressively escalates both in physical intensity and psychological stakes. The first full-fledged combat scene after his reunion with Mika occurs in an abandoned warehouse district. Here, Raizo faces multiple Ozunu assassins dispatched to eliminate both him and Mika. The sequence is choreographed with meticulous attention to spatial dynamics and combat realism. Each assassin is introduced individually, their approach and style contrasting with Raizo's fluid, adaptive fighting techniques. The camera alternates between sweeping tracking shots to establish geography and tight close-ups that capture the subtlety of movement, grips, stances, and precise strikes. The choreography emphasizes Raizo's mastery of momentum. He uses an attacker's forward momentum against them, pivots off walls to redirect force, and simultaneously creates openings to protect Mika. The environment is fully utilized. Scaffolding, crates, loose chains, and staircases serve both as tactical tools and obstacles, creating a dynamic three-dimensional battleground. Mika's role in this sequence is carefully calibrated to maintain narrative credibility while emphasizing her growth as a partner. Though untrained in martial arts, she leverages situational awareness and strategic improvisation. For example, during a moment when Raizo is temporarily engaged, Mika uses a loose pipe to fend off an approaching attacker, demonstrating intelligence and adaptability rather than raw physical skill. The choreography and cinematography collaborate to highlight this synergy. Over-the-shoulder shots align the viewer with Mika's perspective, while wide shots display the coordinated movements between her and Raizo. Sound design enhances each action beat. The clash of weapons, the scuff of boots on concrete, and ambient echoing industrial noise all serve to heighten tension and realism. This scene establishes the partnership's rhythm, blending lethal skill with strategic problem-solving. The next significant sequence, a confrontation on the Berlin rooftops during a torrential downpour, serves as both narrative escalation and visual spectacle. Raizo confronts Takashi, whose unyielding adherence to the Ozunu doctrine makes him the perfect foil. Every movement in this fight is calculated, from blade arcs to foot placement. Reizo's style is adaptive and fluid. He anticipates environmental hazards and leverages them to his advantage. Takashi's movements are rigid, precise, and telegraphed, reflecting his doctrinal indoctrination. Cinematography here emphasizes the verticality of the environment. Crane shots capture leaps across buildings, tracking shots follow the choreography laterally, and slow-motion sequences punctuate the most lethal strikes. Rain-soaked surfaces introduce realistic challenges. Slips, splashes, and reflections are integrated into the fight, enhancing both aesthetic beauty and narrative realism. The rhythm of this sequence is tightly coordinated with Elon Eshkeri's score, where percussive beats mirror each strike, intensifying the audience's emotional and visceral engagement. Interwoven throughout these sequences are Reizo's flashbacks to his childhood under the Ozunu Clan. These are more than expository devices, they inform every decision, hesitation, and maneuver. The filmmakers employ a distinctive visual language to differentiate memory from present-day action. Desaturated color palettes, softer focus, and subtle slow-motion signal intrusion of past trauma. For example, during a rooftop confrontation, Reizo's hesitation as a blade arcs toward him triggers a flashback to Kiriko's execution. The camera lingers on his eyes, reflecting fear, guilt, and determination. These moments deepen the narrative, making the action sequences resonate emotionally rather than existing as spectacle alone. The warehouse infiltration sequence prior to the climactic compound battle is a masterclass in multi-layered choreography and environmental storytelling. Raizo and Mika navigate multiple opponents using stealth, hand-to-hand combat, and improvised weapons. Long tracking shots establish spatial geography, while rapid cuts punctuate moments of high-intensity action. The filmmakers employ a dynamic interplay of lighting and shadow. Stark overhead lights illuminate combatants selectively, creating both visual drama and tactical uncertainty. Each enemy defeated conveys Reizo's strategic intelligence, and Mika's improvised interventions highlight her evolution from passive observer to active participant. Their collaborative movements, alternating offensive and defensive roles, reflect the integration of physical skill and moral agency, reinforcing the film's central themes. The climactic assault on the Ozunu compound represents the film's visual and thematic zenith. The compound is designed as a labyrinthine space, with multiple levels, narrow corridors, and interconnected rooms facilitating complex choreography. Raizo and Mika infiltrate methodically, neutralizing guards with precise strikes, leveraging environmental tools, and coordinating their actions to maintain momentum. The final confrontation with the Ozunu Master is staged both physically and ideologically. Every strike, block, and counter embodies the conflict between indoctrinated obedience and self-determined morality. Cinematic techniques such as alternating wide shots for spatial comprehension, close-ups for emotional intensity, and slow motion for lethal strikes ensure clarity amidst chaos. Sound design amplifies every movement, from blade impact to ambient environmental noise, while the musical score accentuates tension, climax, and resolution. Behind the scenes, production details further illuminate the film's commitment to realism and intensity. Rain underwent rigorous training for months, mastering hand-to-hand combat, weapon techniques, and acrobatic maneuvers. Stunt coordinators designed sequences to maximize safety while preserving authenticity, often using wire work, padded surfaces, and precise timing to allow seamless performance. Cinematographers Carl Walter Lindenlaub and teams utilized a combination of stabilized crane shots, handheld sequences, and computer-assisted visual effects to integrate physical and environmental elements. Editing was executed with attention to rhythm and clarity. Rapid cuts enhance intensity without compromising the audience's understanding of spatial relationships and choreography. Reizo's psychological evolution throughout the film is meticulously intertwined with the action. His journey from a conditioned assassin to autonomous moral agent is mirrored in his combat decisions. He increasingly leverages ingenuity, adapts to unpredictable variables, and demonstrates restraint, reflecting ethical growth. Mika's influence is critical. Her intelligence, moral clarity, and emotional support catalyze Reizo's transformation. Their interactions, initially fraught with mistrust, gradually evolve into a synergistic partnership that balances lethal skill with strategic reasoning, emotional awareness, and ethical grounding. The film's reception, while initially mixed, reflects a nuanced appreciation of its strengths. Critics highlighted Rain's performance, choreography, and visual innovation, while noting narrative thinness. Despite this, audiences, particularly martial arts enthusiasts, praised the film's dedication to authentic combat representation, emotional depth, and stylized aesthetics. Its cultural impact extends beyond cinematic boundaries. The film contributed to a resurgence of interest in ninja mythology, influenced subsequent action choreography in Western cinema, and demonstrated the viability of cross-cultural casting and storytelling. In terms of legacy, Ninja Assassin represents a fusion of Eastern martial arts philosophy and Western cinematic spectacle. The film's choreography, cinematography, and narrative integration established new benchmarks for genre filmmaking. Raizo's psychological complexity, combined with Mika's moral grounding, provides an emotionally resonant core that elevates the film beyond mere action spectacle. Internationally, Rain's performance and the collaborative production model exemplify the potential of cross-cultural cinematic endeavors, bridging martial arts authenticity with global narrative appeal.